And so let's start with numerology. Let me know if you see the screen, if somebody can just say that they see the numerology of this last year, 2023. You should see that. Yes, thanks, Renee. Thanks, Mike. Yep, great. So this is a very different year that we're stepping into with numerology. Now, I've been working with numerology for about 10 years. It's an incredible tool. It is not just your life path, right? There's many, many cycles in numerology, including your personal year, your essence number. There's transits in numerology. There's pinnacles and periods and all these fantastic cycles. So if you want to dive into your numerology, let's chat more. But this, some people don't know, but there's universal years. And you just add up the numbers. So we were in a 7-year, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3. Now we're moving into an 8-year. So interestingly, right, just as Saturn went into Pisces, which has been bringing up, you're going to see a lot more of that, need for mental health work, dream work, contemplative process, meditation, spirituality, intuition. That has been mirrored with the year of the 7, which is a lot more like self-reflective, more introverted than other years, definitely more than the 8-year coming in. More slow down, more alone time, more reading, more studying. 7 is the number of the sage, and the intellect. Classes, academia, developing our psychic gifts, studying past life information, personal psychology, occult studies, dream work. So kind of has a sort of correlation with Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Pisces together. Now, when we look at 8, we are really like stepping up and out. Now, you might know that 8 in China is the most auspicious number. It's the number of greatest fortune, greatest luck. And there will be, I think, because of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction this year, which we'll talk about, there are going to be some of us that have this incredible windfall, like just some huge breakthrough in fortune and gifts of abundance from our source, right? And this year has a potential for a lot of us to harvest our gifts, and there can be huge amounts of financial success in an 8-year, material growth. Finances is a big theme in general, and it's often like globally and personally, again, the wanting to scale our influence and our impact. But the 8-year has a lot around integrity. And I think that something that you're going to see this year is the wealth disparity in the world and how that magnifies those who have, exorbitant amounts of wealth and how they're sort of flaunting that, and versus those who are, trying to disperse that amongst others. And so integrity, and then you see, there's going to be a lot more of these stories of those in power who have manipulated that power and then fall from grace, right? So the 8 has, it's kind of like reputation is a big theme. And so we want to take leadership roles, and it also means that, we're going to be on a pedestal or seen that way, and we're going to be seen more. So we have to be in integrity. We have to be like the scarab as well, very resilient, because there can be a lot of like roller coaster energies during an 8-year. And so, career-wise, we want to look towards promoting ourselves or getting a raise or finding new opportunities or being more of a leader, in action with our leadership, learning to persuade others. And persuasion is not a bad thing. It's, any coach or mentor needs to help another person understand that their value, right, needs to be increased in themselves and in their work in the world. And that's where persuasion is not a bad thing. It can be used in a very negative way, but this year we have to learn how to speak to our own value and the values of those we work with and offer that. And it's just going to be part of our entrepreneurial paths, which are really opening with the North Node in Aries as well. So we'll get to that more in a moment. But this empowerment of self and others, taking our branding and our marketing and all of that to the next level, it's very much the year of the eights. And that's why I like to look at the numerology first, because it gives an umbrella themes for what the astrology even specifies more. And it's so reflective and correspondent. Again, around relationships, everything sort of intensifies. And, our business or our professional relationships are very important this year. We may want to have more kind of luxurious types of experience with those that we love. We want to be more generous. The 8 can be a very generous number, but it can also be bossy in relationship. And so we're going to see that theme with the South Node in Libra. Like, am I giving too much of myself away in relationship? Am I in codependent relationships? And is enough self-autonomy also happening amidst a partnership? Now that can be as well, personal relationship, but professional relationships as well. Materialism, the abuse of power, control. I think obviously war and conflict is going to be a part of this year. Egoism, you're going to see a lot of that in the collective shadow. And you always see that during an election year in the US, but it's going to be on a whole nother level this year. So Sarah's asking, my life path is 8. Does that have meaning for this next year? It's a great question. Everyone will relate to the universal year differently depending on your own numerological signature. So it is important to especially look at your big 5 numbers, which are your life path, your birthday number, which is your gifts and your talents and your skills. And then we have your personality number, your soul urge number. And we also have your expression number. Now these are determined, we have the birth date and then we have the name, right? We have these 2 ways that we have numerological correspondences in our life. And those 5 primary numbers, when they're very strongly linked into your to the universal year, then it's very significant. It becomes a year that's very dominant for us, and in specific ways that we'd have to look at the whole chart. But when you see the life path being an 8, and then in this case an 8 universal year, that's very significant, because it's like you're clocking in. You're like, your puzzle piece is fitting into the collective, and it's saying that you might have a very strong mission this year, or a way to connect what you're doing to a collective process that's unfolding. Quickly, how do you calculate life path number? It is adding all of the numbers in your birth year and birthday. That's how you calculate the life path. Now, those who there was an option to choose getting your Astro-Numerology forecast, basically your personal year. So those who did choose that, then I'm sending this class that teaches you about finding your personal year this year, and some of this material. If it's something you want to study more, we can always do a reading around this or bring it into some further coaching work. But I really do suggest tuning into your numerology if you haven't, because it's another lens on your soul. And it's simply reflecting a lot of the same things in astrology or human design, but it's a really nuanced language that I love working with clients with. So, okay, hope that's helpful. Now we're going to get into, again, the new moons, the full moons, the eclipses, and retrogrades. I want to give some of the themes of these, and then we'll get into those dates as I showed you later. But we just can't stress enough that I think that the eclipse that happens, and other astrologers as well, on April 8th this year, it's a world game-changing eclipse. And there's a couple reasons for this. Well, first of all, wherever the eclipse can be fully seen, that part of the world is going to be very, very impacted. And this is a map that is showing where the eclipse is going. This is the exact path of the total. This is a total solar eclipse. Now, we just had a solar eclipse in October that was not total, it was penumbral. So you could still see the outside of the sun. It was beautiful. But this is total. This is more rare, and it's not going to happen in the US for 20 more years. And it's going down through Mexico here. And I would definitely plan to get to where the total is happening. I'm planning to go. We can meet in Texas. That's where I'm going to go to Texas because the weather should be the nicest there. But this is the path. And how interesting, right? Because of course this is 7 months, 8 months before the elections in the US. A lot of energy is moving. Something huge is going to happen because this moment is when Chiron is on the North Node. And as we saw before in the slide, Chiron is both the wound and the healing of the wound. And when a planet comes to the North Node, or the eclipse in this case, so the North Node is in Aries. So that is the symbol of where we are collectively going and growing, the North Node. And the solar eclipse brings us to the ultimate moment in the collective consciousness. Likely, this is going to involve some great collective wound. Now, this could mean something around the wars that are happening. It could mean, I think, something else in regards to the US, because this is the exact moment of the Chiron return for the US. Simultaneous. The entire year of 2024 is the Chiron return. So a country will experience that every 50 years, like an individual will. And so we should expect that this brings up, a collective wound. Now, this could be, remember, this is an Aries. Aries is a sign of aggression and conflict and potential violence or battlegrounds, and we could see that this could bring some protests or movements. Now, it can be very motivating for us. And that's where, like, on the personal level, I think this is a great awakening, definitely in the US, around the world, but for us to step into our role as coach and mentor and guide. And each of us will probably be processing some of our deepest wounds: birth trauma, past life, growing up, relationship, career, all of the things. And that's why this year becomes a huge year for healing and for our greatest service coming through that. And that's why I keep emphasizing that this year is the year to receive the trainings and the mentorship and then to learn how to language that, to offer it back to the world. And there's a peak moment with this during this total solar eclipse. Okay. I'm just showing you this. We're going to go back to January, but I wanted to mention that also, to know that that this Mercury retrogrades are going to be very important this year. They always are. But just remember that we're in a Mercury retrograde right now, and at the end of the year, this is how we end the year. So it's interesting because when we have this opportunity right now with Mercury and Capricorn to be really reflecting on business and ambition, how we want to grow, the methodologies we need to bring into our life, the structures we want to build out. Then Mercury is going to go back into Sagittarius and begin the year there. And there's going to be some kind of conflict, aggression types of energies at the end of the year, because Mercury's with Mars. Mars is at the end of Sagittarius at the end of the year. So that we need to be very careful around the new year, even Christmas, that we don't create unnecessarily verbal conflicts and confrontations and aggressive words or defensiveness, and instead use the Mercury Mars in Sagittarius to align our mind with our mission, Mars, right? And our action we're going to take when Mercury goes direct on the 1st of January, the new year. It's a perfect time for Mercury to go direct. And this is a beautiful opportunity for us to vision. Sagittarius is the visionary. What can bring the greatest meaning to our lives and to the lives of others, and then create our businesses, our professional life, our careers, Capricorn, built out of that space. That's why the coaching program that I'm offering is going to have a lot of spiritual component to it that will be the basis for the packages and services we're going to offer to others. I really think that this Sagittarius Capricorn energy that's so strong at the end of this year and the beginning of 2024 is really about that. It's about merging the spiritual and the professional or the business, and knowing that that is an element of what this Chiron energy of the wounded healer, how it wants to show up as the mentor now. It's not just about the bottom line, about money or any of that. And it's not about woo-woo out there, because it's not, there's no such thing anymore. It's really about integrating, all of the aspects of our being, complete holistic, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. Now, at the end of the year, 2024, we will have a Mars retrograde again. It's going to come right after the US elections. And that's going to be interesting. Even some astrologers and people think the elections won't even happen. We can talk about why that might be, but assess what you truly want. This is the main thing with Mars retrograde. It's hard to move forward during the retrograde. It's a question of what actions are draining us or really going to support our goals. And it's not ideal to launch projects under Mars retrograde, because we can find some frustrations there. It can be very stressful, not really flow, right? Similar to Mercury retrograde. I mean, Mercury retrogrades are so important because we live in Mercury's world, travel, technology, our computers. And so right now you should be backing up documents, and you should be, taking care of sort of the admin kind of things in preparation for the new year. Okay, so one of the biggest cycles that we've embarked on in 2023 that continues in 2024 is Saturn in Pisces. And here on the screen, you're going to get, some bullet points of some of the big themes that have been coming up since March of this year. Saturn has been in Pisces, and he'll be there for the next 2 years. And Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And so it is the culmination of everything. Now, Neptune is also there. Neptune will be there for another year. And we're going to have this very significant thing that happens when Saturn and Neptune both go into Aries at the same time. And this is going to be the end of a great age and the beginning of another age. And this is happening in 2025. I mean, we are right around the corner. So, or 2026, 2025, it's like we're cusping, right? And we're moving towards something where we're moving into a very, very a brave new world on a lot of levels. Because a lot of the planets a lot of the outer planets are going to be in the last, moments of their signs, and they're going to be changing signs a lot over the coming years. It starts with Pluto in Aquarius this year. And then we're going to have this shift with Neptune come into Aries, and Saturn come into Aries, and Uranus come into Gemini. By 2026, all of these changes have happened. And so there's an ending and a great beginning happening over the next 2 years. And so this year of 2024 seems to be templating a lot of what's to come. And that's why this Saturn energy of Pisces, connecting with our mystic selves, meditating daily in some capacity, or connecting to spirit, archetypal therapies. This is why I love using astrology as a therapeutic tool. Understanding who we truly are, that we are non-dual. We're not really a separate being, and how do we live that way on a daily basis? Using prayer and art and creativity to do that. Is this ringing true for everyone? Has this been such a dominant theme this year for you? Have you been practicing, with this? has it also just felt like, the more spiritual work I do, the more I get clear on every element of my life. This has been just a huge theme, I know, for my clients and for the world this year. Pisces is also the sign of archetypes, mythology, and so connecting again to our totem spirit, our angel guides, the ancestral realm, right? It's Pisces is spirit world, dream work. The messages are going to come in a lot more diffuse ways. Now, Saturn and Pisces can also feel like collectively depressive. Um, Saturn puts a lot of hard work and effort into Pisces, and we have to go deep into our psyche. And also, like, not a lot tends to happen like externally, or like, it doesn't tend to be a big cycle of like economic growth or something like that. But it can be extremely spiritually growing. And the power of story. And this is why, I'm working with all my clients in journaling right now, because it's telling our story, whether that's through memoir, daily journaling, poetic writing. It's very, very important to unlock all the parts of the psyche. Saturn in Pisces wants that. Now, Saturn is challenging mutable signs this year, next year. And Saturn will go from, he starts the year just like 3 degrees of Pisces. He's going to go all the way to 19. So that's a big chunk of mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, and Sagittarius, that will get a challenging aspect from Saturn, whether that's an opposition, a square, or a conjunction. And so we're looking at really 0 to 22 degrees of, those signs having this in the first 6 months of the year, having this really strong, like, demanding presence from Saturn to step up. And so if you have planets in those first 20 plus degrees of these signs, Gemini, Sag, Pisces, or Virgo, you're being asked to get more concentrated with your efforts, be more committed to what you're working on, have a long-term plan, be focused. You'll feel the energy of the taskmaster. You'll feel like you more pressure and responsibility, and you can be rewarded for that hard work and that discipline. So if that's you, if you know about that part, in your chat, I know that's me. But you can put that in the chat if you've been feeling that already. Saturn only got up to 7 degrees this year, but he's getting again to 19 in Pisces in the next year. So who are our Pisces, Virgo, Sag, Gemini types? Whether that's your moon or your sun or your rising, this is going to be one of the big initiations this year with the Saturn placements. So let me know you're out there. Put it in the chat. Sag rising, right? So then Saturn, is going to be in your 4th house, which is the area of the home. And usually there's some big renovation, remodeling. Maybe we moved during that time. We have work to do with our family of origin. That can be huge. Yeah, well, Sun and Sag, yeah. So again, Saturn squaring your life force, your identity, your purpose, sometimes challenges with authority with that. Yeah, Virgo Sun. When Saturn opposes the Sun, it's usually some big challenges with authority in our life. And it's a question and a quest for us to become our own authority, to be a leader, to really step up, create systems in our life, structures that we can really grow into over the next 7 years, a Saturn cycle, 14 years, a Saturn cycle. Saturn Venus, can be big around relationships. Usually there's either some kind of break because it's not really strong foundation, or it's some kind of attraction to older people or to more business types of relationships, or a real clarity on what we do want and what we don't want. And the voice of Saturn a lot of times in relationship is, nope, not this, not that, but I will commit and mature this, because it has the long-term sense of growth. And it's like you want to build a pyramid together in relationship, and that requires some real serious, mature relating. So we can talk more about this if anyone wants to do some work around their chart. But we do need to get into Pluto and Aquarius, a massive theme for the next 20 years. Now, you know, Pluto went in for a few months this year, happened to be the time when, you know, AI started to explode on the world scene. All of these Aquarian themes really started to get activated. Now it's again big as the year begins. Pluto moves in January, and he's still going to go back into Capricorn a bit this next year. And so we're on that cusp that we've been on all year 2023, 2024. Pluto has been destroying and sort of, you know, that's what Pluto does. He transforms the archetype of Capricorn, which we've seen over the last 15 years. Big businesses, governments, institutions, you know, being dismantled, including the banking system. I mean, as soon as Pluto went into Aquarius, we saw all the banking crisis with the Silicon Valley banks and some others. The big sense is that this will continue in the next year, 2 years. That's why having our assets allocated in where we can control them, and you know, and some of that may be digital, right? We think of cryptocurrencies. That's been a big loss for some people, and it's been a big gain. But you do, you know, you can, you know, I know I lost some, and some people did, but they were in places where they were lending them out, and they didn't really have the backing to that, right? So that lack of integrity around any institution is really up for us collectively. And but if you own Bitcoin, you know, and that's yours, the sense is, you know, it did grow quite a bit recently, but you're talking about something that is your personal asset. Now you have to learn how to be autonomous and control that, and not put your control of your resources into other people's hands, which is a big shift for a lot of us, because our previous generations just, you know, their 401ks and their retirements and everything was in the government, and no longer can that be trusted. And this is a big theme as we unfold this cycle with Pluto and Aquarius. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction this year is the wealth is being redistributed and the currencies are being redistributed. And it's going to be really important to consider, like, if I have only my money in dollars and the global economy is moving off of the dollar, or we're becoming more digital in our currencies, where's my wealth really going to be? So we have to ask these questions. And this is part of the Aquarian thing of, like, I have to become sovereign, but I have to become more responsible. And so this is why we have to align ourselves with the right communities, the right affiliations. It's a very Aquarian theme. And the potential is to become more free as we do that. If I can grow my own food with my neighbors of local farms, then I'm not as dependent on the systems that are going to shut down more and more, or increase the prices more and more. Hyperinflation will definitely continue this year. Again, if things are losing value and they're printing more money, it's going to continue to lose that value. So, you know, and some of that might cause the protests and the rebellions. Those could be happening because, again, of wars and conflicts. But nonconformity is a big part of Pluto and Aquarius, as well as shifting jobs and labor out of you know, typical traditional work and into more, you know, working from home. Aquarius is a sign of technology, you know, and the economy that's built around, like, sort of what's disruptive, what's new, and how can I be a part of that, right? The side hustle economy, people working online, earning from YouTube, earning from, you know, I watched this interview with 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds they've made tens of millions of dollars on Snapchat because they know how to work it, right? And so we don't want to hide from these technologies, but we want to have a healthy relationship with it. And this is going to be a major theme as the years unfold with Pluto and Aquarius. For instance, our relationship to AI, Chat GPT. We can grow exponentially. I use it with my clients to help with coaching, to help with idea generation. It can be used for everything. And, where are the ethics around how we use it in terms of writing or, different, there was strikes this year, right, with Hollywood around this. So there's different questions we're going to be asking with Pluto and Aquarius. And it has a lot to do with how we relate to our technology and the responsibilities that we have around, how we're integrating our, our work with our service and sort of the interconnectedness and interdependence now on, people around other parts of the world for us to get our jobs done here. Right, that's also a very Aquarian thing. Like a lot of people are hiring people through Fiverr and Upwork, and people working in Bangladesh and Pakistan and different places like this. And we are becoming this global network, right? So, there's a lot to talk about with this, but essentially 20 years we'll have Pluto in Aquarius. So those of you who have planets at the first degrees of Taurus or Aquarius or Scorpio, you'll feel this, and Aquarius. Last degrees of Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, Aries, you're going to feel this Pluto shifting really strong. This is also transgenderism. I think there's going to be a lot more energies around that in the political realms in the US this year. What rights do people have with schooling, education? So there's a lot to talk about with this, right? There's big awakenings that are happening for a lot of us. We connect with the energy body really strong with Pluto and Aquarius. And part of that is also our connection to our alien, ancestors and family. We're also going to find more and more life abroad, meaning in other solar systems and, astrobiology, the whole science of studying life on exoplanets, as well as our own, Jupiter's moons, right? Or Enceladus in Saturn, right? And we have missions going to these places in the next decade. So I think, our worldview is going to open up hugely. And the challenge is for us to not get sucked into the realm of algorithms and, benefiting from that. We've all benefited. We all get recommendations that we've enjoyed, right, through YouTube or Amazon. But we have to realize how much of ourselves is being watched at every moment and how deeply we want to play in that, because there's going to be more and more invitation to play there and to be distracted there. And here you see this regulation of internet and technology that is likely very strongly coming more, and our own regulation, right? The Jupiter-Uranus transit that's coming this year, which we're going to talk about, is going to accelerate things so much. And also Jupiter going into Gemini. And I just want to say something about like the children that we have in the next generations and what it's like to grow up with the internet that maybe some of us here didn't, and the speed and the some of the numbness that can happen almost necessarily by swiping so much. And if you look at TikTok, right, there's dopamine hits that are happening every time you're flipping through and you're swiping. Same thing with like, Tinder years ago, but this is something we have to watch. And that's why neuroscience and understanding our cognition and how it's working and how, what's happening with our brain when we are, multitasking, right? And having 100 tabs open or flipping through TikTok, you have 6 seconds to get attention, which means that people are changing all the time like this. Now that's affecting our brain, right? And I'm not the expert on this. I know we have people on this call who are much more, tuned into what the effects of that are, but there's been some really interesting books coming out around the dopamine hits from technology. And we need to become aware of our own relationship to that, and our relationship to artificial intelligence. It's going to be something that we can't avoid. And so we need to really build a more conscious relationship around it. And that's why um, I want to share these, these movies about AI with you, because they get us to reflect on something that we must do. Because this last year we saw everywhere the stories of what this could be for us, and it can be liberating and it can be enslaving. But we need to think about the next generation, and how we can have a responsible relationship with technology. Again, here's some of the other themes around economic systems, regional banks, local communities that we have a lot more control of. Let's get involved with it as soon as possible now. Here's the movies I recommend. I just saw Her again. I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. I've seen it 3 times and I was absolutely blown away. I think it's the best movie about AI in some ways, because it's very personal. And that's what AI will be. It will be very personal. So Her, Ex Machina, Swan Song, After Yang, a couple of these came out last year. Archives, really trippy. Check these out. Like they're very, very mentally stimulating, and I think really important. So let's talk about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. This is one of the biggest cycles of 2024. I have a lot of notes here. I'm going to pull up as we talk about this. So Jupiter and Uranus are coming together at the 21st degree of Taurus. April 20th is the exact date. So right after that eclipse, that solar eclipse. Now, Jupiter and Uranus come together every 14 years. And so it's not that rare. But if it's happening and touching a particular planet in your chart, especially something around 15 to 25, 26 of Taurus, or even the squares or oppositions, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo, this is going to be very, very significant for you. And it's also hugely going to impact the collective. So here's just a couple keywords. I'm going to explain this a lot more. And we're going to talk about some previous cycles with Jupiter Uranus, because they're very interesting to study, especially Jupiter Uranus in Taurus. We always want to look back in history and look at when these cycles happened before, because it's going to give us a window into what's about to emerge. There's Jupiter energy of expanding and inspiring and growing and amplifying the Uranian pulse of excitement, instability, chaos, revolution, breakthroughs, right? This is very electric. This is very Promethean. If you know Prometheus stealing the fire from the gods and gifting it to humanity, there's going to be huge accelerations with this probably in a lot of fields of technology, innovation. There's also a surge towards freedom. Both of these planets are all about freedom. So this is wherever there's constricted energies, we're going to try to break free from them, and we're on the heels of that North Node Aries eclipse. We're in Aries season the weeks before this. Aries being the sign of, freedom and going for what we want. So change and novelty is huge under Jupiter Uranus. It's also very creative, very original energies come through. And it's also an expansion of metaphysics into the collective, because Uranus rules the metaphysical mind. And this is where I think astrology, human design, numerology, these tools are going to be like cemented more into the collective. And we've been seeing that every year, more and more and more. And I'm all about it, right? And then we're going to have Jupiter go into Gemini right after this, right? So before going into that, this is going to happen in May, but let's break down this cycle more, okay? And if you have planets in that 15 to 25 degrees of fixed signs, put it in the chat, because I'd love to hear about that. But tune into this, because the last time Jupiter and Uranus were in Taurus was 1941. Well, we know that 1941, we were in the middle of World War II. And we're pretty much in a world war right now in a lot of ways. And we've been in this war, the whole Ukraine and Russia type of war. We've been in this war, of course, now with the Israeli-Palestine situation. And this is it's interesting to think about this because the North Node is in Aries and will be there for all of 2024. And so the North Node is the collective like evolution and growth. And we might not think that war is evolving, but it's sort of where the collective consciousness is going. And in the sign of conflict and war, Aries, it's grown this year. And it seems like that will potentially continue to happen this year. And then we have this sense of Jupiter-Uranus in history. There's so much creative breakthrough that happens with that. But there's also on the other side in Taurus, Taurus rules resources. It rules the material world. And so there can be a great disruption of that, with Jupiter-Uranus going through that sign. And of course, wartime economies, we kind of have to think about it that way, because what's happening, and we can, again, the idea of the deep state or like, the powers that be, however we want to talk about that, usually big wars are all sort of constructed, right? They're all constructed for a larger global agenda. And a lot of people are talking about like what's really behind these major conflicts we've had in 2023. And some people really think that it's about creating a more of a digital currency that we are all going to have to possibly submit to. It's called the central bank digital currency. And this is something we really want to talk about because, again, we're going to have to see what our relationship is to value, to currency, to exchange. And this is important because this energy is very revolutionary. So we could be seeing protests against that kind of digital currency, but it could be protest around many different things. There's like fireworks going off with Jupiter-Uranus. Literally, we had the American Revolution was the opposition between Jupiter and Uranus. The French Revolution was also a Jupiter-Uranus connection. And then in 1968 and 69, this was Jupiter-Uranus, not in Taurus, but Jupiter-Uranus, which of course we had protests everywhere, to the Vietnam War, everything going on. We had assassinations happening. There was the, movement for gay liberation, equal rights. Now we see that updated into sort of the transgender, energies and so we think there's going to be some really revolutionary and protests and kind of movements, collective movements this year, and some peaking around this cycle. Now, there's also, with Jupiter-Uranus, there's a lot of breakthroughs, like we said, and some of these are technological. What's so interesting is that 1997 was a Jupiter-Uranus connection. And this was when the hybrid kind of cars were starting to come out. And we think that what gets seeded in 2024 may be related to flying vehicles more and more. Something people have been predicting for a long time, but I don't have it here on the screen, but look up 2024 Paris Olympics, and you will see that there will be flying vehicles to transport at the Olympics. This is happening. And a lot of times what happens with Jupiter-Uranus is that what's seeded during the conjunction, right? The conjunction is always a seeding, a beginning, like a new moon, two planets. Then at the opposition, so this would be like 6 to 7 years later, that's when it gets fully integrated into the collective. And so if we think like the end of the decade, flying cars are very like common. Sure, that could be seeded this next year. And also that will be when Uranus is in Gemini, and Gemini is an air sign. And we could see that technology and innovation, Uranus, happens in the air, right? So that's an interesting thing to think about, given that the hybrid vehicles, right, were also part of Jupiter Uranus before. Now in 2010, we had also a huge protest movement. This was, just 14 years ago, right? So that would be the last Jupiter Uranus. Think about what was going on around this time. 2010, 2011, 2009. It was the Arab Spring, right? Huge protests in Cairo. It was the Greek debt crisis, which created a lot of protests. There was Spanish crisis. There was issues going on in England. We had the Occupy Wall Street movement. So there was a rallying of people during a Jupiter Uranus energy. Okay, so let's see what else. So for us who have this, touching our charts particularly, this can be a time of a great kind of awakening, a very celebratory moment, a breakthrough moment, a standing out moment, a great time to be launching something or be in the collective in some way. And it could be like a stroke of grace that comes into our life, like some kind of major turning point or pivot, right? So we don't have to wait till then. We want to prepare for this, but there's something that is like a major breakthrough of revolution, both personally and collectively. Something hopeful and enthusiastic can come through. It's like a new possibility, right? Now, we've been talking about like there's a lot of intense energies this next year, but there is like this huge kind of breakthrough, and maybe there's a new technology that gets seeded that then 6 years from now becomes the major tech, right? I mean, this happened with Instagram. Instagram came through really strong in 2010 during the Jupiter Uranus, and it's now like definitely more popular than Facebook on a lot of levels, or Meta, but we see like that kind of thing. Something new and fresh on the personal and the collective. There's also a feeling of something visionary or utopian that wants to move through us. There's rapid and sudden changes and openings that are occurring. So how is this possibly looking in your life? Can you see how this might be coming into your life in just a few months from now? If you feel this, like, what does it feel like for you, feeling into this Jupiter Uranus energy coming? There could also be beneficial connections, unexpected epiphanies. Let's write something in the chat. What is this energy looking like for you? Do you have a sense of it? Definitely feel Harriet's saying she's feeling it. All right. Well, I'd love to hear from, I think everyone would love to hear in the chat what people are feeling. Some historians believe FDR let Pearl Harbor bombing happen to help get out of the Depression economy. Well, we're gonna go into the economy here in a moment. I do want to give like a little big picture and then get us into, all the exact dates more in a moment. But financial freedom. Yeah, I mean, what does that mean for us, right? Because there could also be a lockdown at the same time. So let's think about this. Jupiter will be in Gemini the rest of the year, starting May 25th. This is going to be really expansive, a lot of growth for air signs. So that's Aquarius and Libra and Gemini. If it's your rising, if it's your moon, sun, those parts of your life will feel like, there's a blessing here. there's benevolence. Maybe also this could, you know, bring more abundance to you if you have planets in those signs, the air signs. In general, we're looking at, you know, Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, the opposite sign. So this is what we call a planet in detriment. Detriment planets have to function a different way. They're not so comfortable in that sign. So why is Jupiter ruling Sagittarius and uncomfortable in Gemini? Because Jupiter is visionary. Jupiter is big picture. Jupiter is cosmological, right? Meaningful. Gemini is in everything all at once. Gemini is all the information, all the data points, all the minutia. It's ruled by Mercury, right? Mercury's the messenger. Mercury's the post office worker who has all of the letters, right? Jupiter's not in the post. Jupiter's in the grand spiritual message being offered to the collective. So when he gets lost in the mercurial Gemini world, there's too many scattered parts everywhere. And this is what we have to be very careful of, especially right now as we're looking at our year ahead, is like, how do we not get distracted by too many things? You know, there's a billion networks we can watch on YouTube, or, you know, how many apps we can look at on our Amazon Fire TVs or our Netflix. You know, it's like we can get endlessly distracted, and it's going to become even more challenging for us to stay focused with Jupiter and Gemini. But whatever we want to be curious about, we can learn about, and we can educate others about. And there's a great transit at the beginning where Jupiter's trining Pluto. And so meaning and philosophy and something around a way to have a deeper impact with our message can really come out to the world. I think that could be a really interesting launch window there too, around the beginning of May, because that Jupiter trine to Pluto, it's going to have impact, whatever's happening. And it's a trine. It's a really fortunate energy. So who's our Geminis in the group? Gemini risings, Gemini moon, suns. It's going to be a big year. I'm Gemini rising, so I'm looking forward to that. But nothing in Gemini. Oh, okay. Well, again, remember that Libra and the other air sign of Aquarius will be feeling this as well. Travel is going to, I think, go crazy this year. Again, we have the North Node in Aries. People want to adventure with that. Gemini is a sign of travel. Jupiter is also the planet of going on spiritual quests. Some of you may know about astrocartography, astrolocality. That's an area that I do a lot of work in. And I would just say that we might have some issues with like travel come up, or, you know, something that may prevent it. Jupiter will square Saturn in August, and that could be some kind of block for some reason. You know, there can be just not too many people trying to move around the planet. But again, there's like a mental overwhelm that can kind of happen with Jupiter and Gemini, or we're trying too much to be everywhere. And that's physically, that's virtually. And so we need to really come back to our true values, right? And that's why I like, I mean, I've traveled to 45 countries. I've lived abroad many times. And I use relocation astrology to help me choose when and where to go. And it can be used for real estate investments, which again, we want to have those hard assets this year. Where should I raise a family, find love, find my ideal clients? So if this is something that's up for you, you're feeling like my next year, I got to move, it's calling me, or I want to have this particular travel, we can definitely look at that and see when to go, where to go. If you know anyone that is looking for that, let's be in touch. I have some specials for the end of the year around that. I'll put that in the chat. But I think that getting more strategic around where we're going and when we're going there, there's a feeling that maybe travel will be restricted more and more, or you're going to have certain IDs or passes to travel, or it's just crazy. If you've been traveling anytime in the last year, like every flight is booked almost all the time. And there's something going on with this where it feels like it's going to be too much in some sense. And I don't know, there's something with this. If you feel what I'm talking about, you can put that in the chat. So let's talk about why we think that astrology and human design and numerology and these systems of self-awareness are going to be so important in the year ahead, because Jupiter conjunct Uranus wants us to be more aligned with our higher self, our spirit. Uranus is the planet of like the download, the epiphany, the flash of insight, the light bulb going off. And we have to get quiet enough to receive that. And then we're going to need to take action around that this year. And so when we study ourselves on these levels, we grow exponentially. And again, Jupiter and Gemini, I think education is going to really transform this year. A lot more homeschooling, a lot more village-based schooling. I love working with children and with high school students and college students, because when we bring these tools to that generation, we can really empower them on their own self-awareness. So education is really growing this year in a lot of different ways. And as we said, Saturn in Pisces wants us to go into the soul. And so the continuing understanding that we have every area of our life that astrology describes, right? And that's this system that I share with community, which is the 12 sacred relations, which are these houses. They're different relationships that we have in our life. We have the relationship with our finances, which is so important when we're using astrology to understand that we have patterns around how we spend and how we can earn. And the chart is going to reveal that to us. Right? So if we're in a business, if we're trying to earn more money, we really want to tune into that, right? And know what kind of archetypes are going to help earn more resources for me. What kind of patterns can I live out? Am I doing that with my career path or in the clients I'm trying to attract, right? Some of that is our 7th house. We have to do energies that relate to our 10th house of career, or we're not going to feel like our mission is being fulfilled, right? Our North Node is something we're hungry for in this life. Are we fulfilling the destiny of our North Node with our professional life? So it becomes really important for us to tune into this so that we feel aligned, and we're not trying to live, someone else's, path of success or growth. And it may not have to do with anything about earning 6 or 7 figures. It may be about, taking care of others and, being a healer in a way that feels sustainable. But I'm not interested in, huge amounts of money. I'm interested in doing what feels fulfilling every day, right? What is our chart saying to us? And again, I would say that 2 of the ways that you can think about astrology for business, remember, this is an 8-year, like we're trying to earn more, we're trying to allocate our resources properly, consolidate our resources. Timing is huge. How we can be most productive, avoiding distraction is one of the best ways of using astrology, as well as looking at the areas of finances and values that we have in our chart, right? The 2nd house speaks to this, Venus speaks to this, other planets can relate to our wealth. And so then if we're looking at human design, we're talking a lot about our genetic gifts. And these are, why design was a big revelation to me 7 years ago was it showed to me some things I already knew with astrology, but it was a different lens. And when I've worked with families with design, right, and we talked about education, we talk about family dynamics or relationship dynamics, we see that design is helping us be and live and earn money and do a career that's authentic for us as an individual. And it's true to our genetic gifts. Right? We all have genetic strengths. That's what we see here. We have 64 codons in our DNA. They connect to the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. So we have these patterns of nature that the ancient Taoist masters realized 5,000 years ago. And they created this oracular system of throwing sticks and coins to understand how nature works. And they called it the I Ching, the way of change, right? And it governed a society for thousands of years. The emperors used this, right? And so it's laid into this beautiful system we call human design, and it's laid into our genetics, the codons in our DNA. We work with the gene keys. Gene keys are coming out of human design. They are patterns of nature living within us, and each of us are designed a different way for optimum growth and for optimum service in the world. And people spend a lot of time talking about their energy type, like projector or manifesting generator, and of course that is hugely important for how we approach our careers. But we have to go much deeper into the design and understand how we make decisions. That's called our inner authority, and practice with this and experiment with this and see how sometimes we're making decisions that aren't really true for our design. We also have the open centers, which are like profit potentials, areas we can grow a lot in. So I talk to a lot of my clients about, oh, this is how you can earn money. Like, let's talk about these open centers. That's where you get educated in your life. It's where you learn a lot. You have a lot of wisdom there. And your channels, like this channel here, becomes a strength, a way that you contribute to the world, right? So design is far more, there's a lot more to talk about. Your profile, your incarnation cross, your environment, of what environment should you live in and work in, right? Your diet, these are all parts of design. So I just wanted to share that there's a lot more to these tools, right? And that's why it's important to take, the slow sips of bringing these into your life and starting to apply them towards, the careers or the business models you're creating. So a lot of my clients are asking these questions. And I want to know if these are some of the questions that you might be asking yourself too, is, how do I brand myself in a way that fits my natural energies, my natural archetypes? What's organic for me, right? How do I brand myself? How do I recognize my ideal client? We talked about that earlier. How do I give an ultimate result to them? What does that mean? Like, what can I create that is what that ideal client needs, right? What kind of transformation can I bring to their life? So then what kind of premium package offer can I give to them? What is a signature program that's my thing, my signature program that I can offer and give again and again and again and improve upon, right? This is where astrology and design actually they gracefully show you that, right? You don't have to try to do it like this person over here, this guru says, or do this kind of sales funnel or that strategy. A lot of it doesn't work and we get frustrated, right? And projectors like myself, we don't have a lot of extra energy to lose, right? But it's not just projectors, it's all of us are needing to refine our work in the world this year. And so we want to use these tools not only for relationships, we've talked about how important they can be for that, but for aligning with our path of greatest abundance and greatest service. So when should I launch my business or website or training, and where can I teach and market? And if you try to have a business that's in person and you might be living in a place that doesn't really support your business very well, that's really interesting. We can see that through astrolocality. So how can I attract cash now? Well, that's why I like creating VIP days. So I help clients do that. I also offer that. So if any of these questions are coming up for you, I'd love to do a VIP day with you and a business audit that's based around your astrology or your design. And so if that's exciting, you can put in VIP into the chat and I'll follow up with you about that. because this is the time of the year to do that, to really use that Mercury retrograde cycle in Capricorn, right? Think about that. Think about it going into Sagittarius, being a visionary. What am I going to create this year? What needs to be adjusted and tweaked, right? So it's great to do that in a deep dive session. Of course, it's nice to have 3 or 6 months of coaching, but sometimes we need a more focused, I'm working on this thing. I need to enroll clients more. I need this kind of way to speak about my work or whatever it might be. Let's talk more about that. Okay. So now we're going to look at the cycles of the US chart and of crypto. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because I want to just go back to the actual dates of all the retrogrades and everything for everyone. But this is important because we are moving into an election year in the US, which affects the entire world, whether we like it or not. It's a little crazy, right? Because of what's happening with politics. I'm starting here with the crypto chart because it's actually Bitcoin's chart. And I'm not going to go into huge theories about Bitcoin, but I think it's important to own some Bitcoin and probably Ethereum if you can. Again, dispersion of your resources. That's something else we can talk about in VIP is financial planning for the year, right? Like really serious. I think it's huge this year. But if you look at this, Pluto going into Aquarius, it's coming right to Mercury in the chart of Bitcoin. Now, in about 5 years, you're going to see Pluto on the north node of Bitcoin. That could be one of the greatest empowerment times of anyone in their life and of an organization or anything born. Pluto on the north node is like ultimate impact, influence, power. Pluto onto Mercury. Mercury rules ideas and information exchange, right? And Pluto's on the Jupiter of Bitcoin now, 29th degree. Bitcoin just exploded like $10,000 or something in the last month, 2 months. So Pluto to Jupiter is expansion. It's something to think about. Now, there's a lot we can talk about here. The North Node will come to the moon. The eclipses are going to hit the moon of Bitcoin. Something to think about, especially as we look at the global economy and what's happening. It's coming next. Next slides here. So the USA chart, again, we can talk about for days, but usually astrologers are using what's called the Sibley chart. This is the Sibley chart. There could be different charts for the US, but a lot of astrologers are working with this chart. But what I want to bring up to you is remember that the US is going through its Chiron return. It's huge cycle of the great wound, the great story of separation, the great victimization story, and the Pluto return at the same time. It's been going through that for almost 3 years. This will be the final year, 2024. It is the time when a nation goes through a major death and rebirth. Now, the fact that these are happening at the same time, Pluto return every 250 years, Chiron return every 50 years, feels very significant to me. And that it happens during an election year. And an election year, which is not really an election, because we're looking at the possibility, right, of Biden again and Trump again. Is that really happening? I don't want to say anything more, but it just like, it feels like a weird, surreal painting or something, it doesn't feel like real. And how do you have like 80-year-old presidents? I don't know, but it just doesn't feel like that is healthy for the future of this country, nor is the spending habits of the US. The US is heavily invested in wars with Israel and Palestine and with Russia and Ukraine. It doesn't have this money. It's putting itself more and more and more into debt. And And as you can see here, England and France and Spain and Russia, all of these countries, when they hit their Pluto return, that was the end of those dictatorships as they were. Napoleon, Franco, Stalin. It was the end, and something new and more democratic was born. But there's a great ending happening, and it may be around the entire political system, which is very corrupt in the U.S. It seems like it's not, but it is. Even the two-party system is very corrupt in its nature. The electoral college is very corrupt. So all of this is going to be coming up, and it's just it is. If you look at what's happening in the world, first of all, when you look at Donald Trump's chart, I'm not going to go deep into this, but I've done other videos about it. But it's just crazy that he's at that position again, even after being like indicted and imprisoned and all the things. I don't know how that's happening, but Jupiter Uranus is going to be conjunct on his angle of career. That feels pretty expansive, actually. And then Jupiter in Gemini will, over the next year, cross his Sun and his North Node and his Uranus, and then the following year, which should be again the first year of president, it's crossing his Mercury and Saturn and Venus. It's a lot of Jupiter energy. Now there's challenges from Saturn. Saturn will come to square his Sun and Moon and South Node and Uranus. And I would say that if you look at early June, this could be the biggest challenge to Trump, is during that time, because of that Saturn, or maybe something else gets leaked, or some corrupt element comes out. But it definitely isn't boding well for Biden either, because he's got Pluto squaring his Chiron. That can be Pluto can bring death or intense brush with death, something like that. And Jupiter's coming into a seventh house. That can bring some benefactors, but it is it's not nearly as auspicious, especially if you look at the eclipses hitting. The South Node is hitting his angle of career. The South Node usually means decrease, right? The North Node is coming to his energy of the home by the end of the year. But usually we would think of the South Node, which is on his moon right now. And if you've seen the last story, there's like talks around impeaching him. That would definitely be the South Node on the moon. It doesn't feel great. Brings a lot of insecurity. So I'm not going to go any more into this, but this is just it paints a picture that is quite, extreme in the US. When Jupiter's in Gemini, over the summer, you're going to have Jupiter on Mars of the US. And so then you're going to have, that can bring more conflicts with those abroad. Jupiter can expand the Martian energy of aggression and, conflict. So there's some challenges here. And I wanted to show you this. This is BRICS, the nations of BRICS. And this is Brazil and Russia and India and China and South Africa. And this community of world leaders has grown exponentially in the last few years. And they are trying to create, an alternative economy and probably currency to get off of the dollar, right? Because most of the dollar goes through, most of the oil sales go through the dollar, and this is happening. And so there's a real dedicated movement to move off of the U.S. dollar. And so what was the great currency, probably by the end of 2024, is going to be very much decreased in its value and continue to decrease over the coming years. And it's interesting because then this brings up the CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency, which is something every one of us needs to understand, that, if there's a big global, when there's big global crises, then there needs to be a big global solution to that crisis. Same thing happens in a nation. And so could, the wars be created because it's really like the powers that be are very scared of, people's movements and individuals becoming more powerful. And then they create these wars, and then they create like a lack of an ability to get resources. And Jupiter, Uranus, and Taurus can disrupt the supply chain hugely. It also can bring great earthquakes and natural disasters because Taurus is a sign of the earth. So we do think that, April, what's happening around that? Something's happening. Maybe that disrupts our ability to get the resources that we need. Taurus is basic resources, material resources, right? Food and shelter. And so if those are locked off from people, and then there's something that's presented to them that is like a digital currency, and they're given some of that as an incentive to be a part of this new world order, that becomes appealing if people don't have the resources. I would definitely be researching this right now because we're moving more and more towards this, and especially as more banks collapse. There's also something called the World ID 2.0, which is about digital identity and how to protect ourselves and make sure that who we are is who we say we are. And it's around using iris scans for this. Look into that a bit. The Real ID is coming in the US, which is also a new kind of, not currency, but digital travel document. So these are very important things to be looking at this next year. With the Jupiter, Uranus, things are going to change very quickly. With the eclipse in Aries, with the big, Pluto into Aquarius, all of this is happening. And so we all need to be empowered and know how to move through this. Okay. So let's get into, we don't have a lot more time, but I'm going to show you the energies again of the specific dates. And then I want to invite you, and here's sort of the outline as we look at the dates ahead. And then I want to invite you to some deeper work, which I'm really excited about. So look at the first quarter, okay, as very dominated by Capricorn and Aquarius. And so there is a lot of that. There's also this visionary component in the first few weeks because Venus and Mercury are in Sagittarius the first couple of weeks of January. And that could be positive for Venus. It gives a sort of a sense of more playfulness in Sagittarius, but it's also a visionary capacity that also has the Capricorn sun and then Mercury by the end of the month going in and helping us to really structure the year ahead and to plan and to really put into action those things that we've been wanting to build out. There is so where are you at, right? Those questions we were asking about the business, the implementation of that, the support that you're getting, it's really important in January towards that. There's also a really auspicious energy, right? January 1st, Mercury goes direct. All the planets are direct. All those, there's no Venus retrograde or Mars retrograde. The planets are direct. So the energy moves. It moves faster. It's more aligned, right? There's not as much hesitation. So you're going to feel this like very kind of rapid movement right at the beginning of the year. So again, it can be good to launch things under all direct planets. That's something to consider, as opposed to when like 6 planets are retrograde. It's not the best time usually to like try to promote a bunch of things. So planning our launches becomes really important this year to be in alignment. Time management, that's a huge Capricorn theme. And then, being more sustainable with what we're building out. Now, one of the things too to consider if you are a business owner or you've begun a business is to look at the chart of your business, because you may not think about this, but if you incorporate a chart, or if you launch a website, when you like, that's a date. That has a birth chart. And how are you personally aligned with the chart of the business? And what cycles is the business going through? This is hugely important. It's just like a nation state is born, a child is born, a relationship is born when you first meet. Everything has a birth date. And so this is something I work with business owners in, is looking at the chart of the business. And you can really look at the cycles of that and then think about how you can grow that way. Okay, so let's look at the dates. I'm going to pull up the calendar here. Thank you guys for being patient. And I know there's a lot to share here. And if you want to ask any questions or any feedback, please do. But I want to show you the dates here, and you can do some screenshots of this. So let's share the screen. And this is first looking at the eclipses, okay? The eclipses are in Aries and Libra this year. And actually, we have an eclipse in Pisces at the end of the year. So this is gonna start that Pisces Virgo series that's coming. That's gonna be bigger in 2025, even some of 2026. But wherever Aries and Libra are in your chart are gonna be the areas that are gonna have the biggest transformation, the biggest soul growth, the ending of one cycle, the beginning of another, relationships, career, home. So look at these degrees. The full moon eclipse comes March 25th. Put this in your calendar, because this is, again, the big pivot moments of the year. And if you have planets, around 5 Libra, that's going to be March 25th. That's big evolutionary phase shift there, whatever house that's in. And then that huge eclipse on the 8th. April 8th, the solar eclipse is at 19 Aries. That's a very sensitive degree this year. And then we have the next eclipses coming in September and October. September 17th, 25 Pisces. So look at any planets around there, wherever Pisces is in your chart. Right? And then we have some of the themes here, with Pisces, eclipses, imagination, spirituality. And then we have the Libra eclipse again. Now this is the solar eclipse that's going to happen at 10 degrees, October 2nd. Oh, I said 19 degrees is sensitive. I don't mean like the astrological term, sensitive degree. I mean, it's sensitive because that eclipse is there. And it's where Chiron is Chiron is right there on the north node at that eclipse. So when a planet comes back to touch the eclipse point, or comes forward to touch the eclipse point, it triggers the eclipse energy. So what's really interesting with that is Jupiter, Uranus, when that is happening on 420, Venus will be at that degree. Venus will be at the eclipse degree when Jupiter or Uranus get conjunct. That's why we think, again, something very explosive could happen right on that date of 420, 419, 421. Besides, the whole, like, everyone smokes because it's 420, if you know that story, but maybe there's a big smoke protest. But so that's what I mean by that sensitive degree. Now, this is interesting, right? Because this is right before the elections in the US. And Libra rules justice, right? Fairness, equality, right? So the energy is going to be really hot around that eclipse. It's going to be really, really strong. Now, here's the list of the new and full moons. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. It's really one you should have in your calendar, or if you get the Astro calendar with me, we can, that'll be there for everyone. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can just see where they are. But the first new moon of the year is coming in Capricorn at 20 degrees. That's January 11th. And then the full moon that month of January is going to be at 5 degrees of Leo. Remember that a new moon is where we plant seeds, we set intentions, we want energy to grow. So if we have a planet that's hit by the new moon, that's getting a infusion of new life. If we have a planet hit by the full moon, it's coming to a fruition, a culmination, and there should be a ripening around that planet and around that house in our chart. So the new moon energies are what we see it, and 6 months later, the full moon will be in that same sign, maybe even around a planet that was hit by that new moon. So it's a 6-month window. What I set intention in now, 6 months later should be fulfilled. So wherever the Leo energy is in your chart, January 25th, that would have been something you seeded back in July. 6 months. So same thing here with the new moon in Capricorn. Yeah. So it's always a 6-month cycle, right? And there you'll see the eclipses. Okay. So let's look at Mercury retrograde dates. This is really important. I would take a screenshot of this. It looks small, but you can just zoom in. Let's see if I can just get it up. Yeah, there we go. So something about Mercury cycles, the shadow period can be important. The shadow period is before and after the retrograde, and it relates to the moment when Mercury goes to the degree that he will go back to. So it marks like the themes that are coming, the energies that are going to arise during the Mercury retrograde. Then Mercury will be in the shadow after the retrograde, and that's where we're trying to integrate some of the lessons learned, the ideas, the information, what's happened during that Mercury retrograde. So those are called the shadow periods, and that's what you see here, the Mercury shadow. Okay, this is what it's going to be about, you know, and then the peak energy is the actual dates. Where you see the word Cazimi here is when Mercury is with the sun. Now, this is always halfway through the cycle, and there's a very significant message or ideas shared, information that comes through. It's like the Cazimi dates are very important because there's some important download, and can be a really good time to share a message with the world. I try to do some kind of talk or lecture or live or campaign or something during that time, because Mercury is being infused by the life force. And it's like he's going into the heart of the sun, the king of the solar system, and getting a message from the king and then going to deliver that to the people. So actually that's happening on December 22nd in 8 days. So this is something important coming through here. And maybe you want to share a message during that time. So there's all the Mercury retrograde dates. And here we have the dates for all of the big cycles of the year. Now we've gone over what I think are the biggest cycles. And you can also take a screenshot of this. It goes on to the next page. There's Pluto going into Aquarius on January 20th. This is what I was saying with Chiron conjunct the North Node. It's exact February 19th. But you're going to feel that Chiron on the North Node from the end of January through, everything into April. And I think it's one of the transits of the year. This Pluto Cazimi, Pluto with the sun, is really important. There's a surge towards power. There's probably something militaristic going on with that. There's just a real intensity and something very dramatic and cathartic. This would be a great time to be doing some breath work, shamanic healing work, January 20th, regression work. Sun Pluto is just very intense. So watch the power struggles during that time. Then you will see that you don't see it here actually, but I want to point out that a lot of, so the month of February, interesting because it's Valentine's time. Mars and Venus are pretty close to each other. They're conjunct, and that's the god and the goddess. So this is going to bring up a lot of stuff around personal relationships. And I think that there could be some kind of big challenges around Valentine's Day because Mars is conjunct Pluto. Now this is a very warlike energy. I mean, you can't paint that very pretty because Mars is surging towards this hugely intense and transformative Pluto energy. It's very competitive. It can be violent. It can be aggressive. Now, some of the greatest athletes ever have this. I think Muhammad Ali had this, but Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, or one of them, won the most Super Bowls in the U.S., has Mars Pluto. It's just this resilient striving towards intense power and control, and we should expect something to be happening there. But the fact that Venus is going to hover around Pluto as well, and Mars there, it's going to be very intense around relationships. So look at the entire month of February as really needing to tend our relationships, and that whatever's happening is very evolutionary and also very karmic, because Mars and Venus rule the nodes, which are the symbols of our collective karma, right? What we're shedding, or, with Libra, am I in right relationship? I am in balanced relationship, Libra South Node. There's karmic partnerships coming into our life all year ahead. And we also need to serve our own growth, our own independence, our own freedom, our own leadership. That's the North Node in Aries. So whenever, Mars and Venus are being hit, there's something evolutionary going on this year. I hope that makes sense because they rule the nodes. And that's why when Mars goes retrograde down here, December 6th, that's important because Mars is ruling the North Node. And so there's a sense of where are we collectively going and growing that comes up really strong. And it will have to do with leadership themes, Leo. This comes right after the US elections. Cancer, home, the US has a lot of Cancer in its chart. Safety, security. So hopefully you got a screenshot of this. So if we look at this, I'm just seeing what else wants to jump out. There's a lot more we can talk about. I think whenever you see Mars Saturn, that can feel really grinding, feel like we can't accomplish very much very quickly. And we need to really look at the long-term vision of our goals, Saturn, and take steady steps of growth, Mars, to get there. But this is Mars conjunct Saturn in Pisces. And so there can be something around mental health really strong at this time. It could be a great time for spiritual development. This is in April, also March. There's a lot of energies in Pisces. So we want to really be putting a lot of energy towards spiritual growth, the imagination, in the March season, some of the April season, as we prepare for that big eclipse coming. And then Mars will conjunct Neptune at the end of the month. And then Mars goes into Aries, his home sign. And that's going to be very significant. You don't see that here because this is not everything. But it's just days after this. So we're looking at beginning of May, Mars will go into Aries. That's really going to promote action. So coming off of the eclipse, there's going to be a lot of intense energy coming right at that last 2 weeks of April and into the beginning of May. And then the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is happening right then, right? And then you have Jupiter going into its conjunction with the sun, which is going to be really powerful and time of great learning and expansion. And then Jupiter will go into Gemini as Mars conjuncts the North Node. So this is hugely accelerating energy, very activating, very initiating, very motivating, coming right in the middle of May. And there's that Jupiter move into Gemini. And before that, this is one of the more beautiful combinations of the year. Venus conjunct Jupiter in her home sign of Taurus can bring great wealth for some of us potentially during that time. But there's big energies moving, and it's usually a very like great loving energy when Venus and Jupiter come together. Venus with the Sun here, June 4th. Again, anytime you see Mars, Pluto, or Mars, Uranus, those are cycles to really watch and prepare for, and prevent disaster or catastrophe in some way, because Mars ignites and aggravates and brings irritation to whatever it's touching. And if it's touching Uranus, that can be very volatile. It can be crazy making. It can be wild. It can be problems with electricity and our nervous systems and high anxiety, moving too fast, right? So be careful with that. And of course, we said with Pluto, a few months after the conjunction, Mars squares Pluto. And again, it's that whole like intense power struggle or control issue that comes up, or shadow work that we have to do. We always have to do shadow work with a Pluto, any kind of connection with Pluto. Yeah, and I think August has some real kind of energy with the squares of Mars and Jupiter to Saturn, some kind of block. Maybe we can't move in the way we want, or there's some kind of restrictive energy coming from governments or institutions in some way because of that Saturn presence. This might be something around censorship, not being able to share the ideas in the way that we might want. Gemini. This is very much the messenger energy, but there's big messages happening. Mars Jupiter conjunction in Gemini. This comes right around. I know the Olympics are going to be happening here. I don't know. It's a little. I want to be a little careful around that energy. Briefly, Pluto will go back into Capricorn, just hang out at that last degree before going into Aquarius for good in 2025. And just as we go forward, we saw the eclipses, but this big energy, Mars opposite Pluto, literally days before the US election. Right? And so this will tune us back into whatever was happening during the square, June 11th, and during the conjunction, February 13th. These are big moments around politics, power, global economy. These are the biggest dates for that. And this is very intense, very dramatic in the collective. I wouldn't be surprised if there's, a lot of craziness around the US at that time. Yes, so these are the major cycles. Any questions on that before I wrap this up and then share with you about moving forward and some other offerings I want to share with you? God, it's been a big journey today. Thank you all for joining and be a part of this. Any questions? How is this all landing? I know there's a lot there. Guys still breathing over there and alive, and how's it feeling? Corruption, yeah, this is what we have to tune into. Mars conjunct on July 15th. Mars, July 15th. Mars conjunct Uranus on July 15th. Yeah. Very helpful. Very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot going on this year. So I hope you got some screenshots of that. Again, this calendar is something I'm going to be working a lot more with clients, mapping out the year ahead. Let's see. Do you see the keynote again? Maybe Renee, you could let me know about that. Do you see the keynote? It says astro calendar, and then now it says time mapping. Looks set to be an exciting year. You see the calendar, or is it the keynote with the stars in the background? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Oh yeah, she's saying looks set to be an exciting year. Yeah. Yeah. There'll be a follow-up email. Um, Thanks for being with us here today. All intense and encouraging and crazy making. Cool. Well, so um, what I'm doing with clients, we talked about this VIP day. A couple of you put that in the chat, and also time mapping. Now, time mapping can be part of our VIP day, it can be its own session, but this is where we really create a game plan for 2024. And so this is going to be going through the monthly themes, month by month, and giving you weekly auspicious dates particular to you. So where is that Jupiter landing in your chart, Jupiter, Uranus? Where are the eclipses coming for you? I also give you a written report about the peak and important dates for the next 6 or 12 months, depending on which time map you want to do. And so it's a way to get into both professional and personal forecasting. Um, and so it's deeper than just a general forecast. And so if you are thinking, when should I network and market and promote myself? When should I launch a product? When should I take time off? When should I go out more if I'm dating, or be with my partner more? That's what we get into. It's very detailed, like these days of this month, right? So I'd love to support you with that. If you are interested in doing any one-on-one work, then check out the Calendly link right here. I'm going to put it in the chat. It's how to do a free Unleash Your Genius session. It's to get you clear on where you're going this next year. I know a lot of people have to go, so I'm going to just put this in the chat before you go. This is for us to jump on a call together. And there's some slots next week where we can talk about what's going to be most supportive of you in the year ahead. We'll get you clear on your goals, your challenges, and if there's some way that I can support you, great, we'll talk about that. If not, you'll receive some clarity about the year ahead. So check out the Unleash Your Genius strategy session, and then we can see if we want to do some one-on-one work or group work together. And I'm so excited about this year. I think it's going to be a really, really powerful year ahead. It's a year where things are going to move very fast for a lot of the world, a lot of us. But if we can be methodical, if we can be strategic, if we could be self-assessing, if we can have a community to support us, and our coaches, we can coach and mentor and guide others in a way that we never have before, and really be abundantly supported in that. So I really thank you for your time today. I hope this has been valuable. If there's any shares you want to share about what you've received today, a big takeaway, something you've learned, something you're excited about, something from your vision board, put it in the chat. We'll share it with the group before we close today. You'll get the replay as well. That'll be sent tomorrow. And it's been a big journey. So thank you. Thank you all for joining today. I loved it. Thank you. Yes. Where can we get a recording? That will be sent out. And let's see what else. Great. Right on. Time mapping. Great. Yeah. That very, very helpful to outline the year with the time mapping. All right. Well, any final shares? Just takeaways from today. And maybe one thing you're going to implement as you move forward. Thank you for all you gave. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate that. One thing you want to share with your group, an implementation. Oh, Elena was asking about Kazemi. It means when the planet is conjunct the sun in the same exact degree. So that means it's really getting infused a lot with the life force of the sun, and it's like the most extreme and amplified expression of that planet during the year. It could be for that day. It could last about a week, depending on if it's like Pluto, but it's always, when the planet comes right to the sun. Lynn is saying that she wants to take time in the morning to be still and quiet. Yeah, great takeaway. Yeah, Carrot, I will see you in the Unleash Your Genius session. Again, if you want to do any future work, that's a great way to jump on a call with me and see what can really support you in the year ahead. So much to think about. It's left me feeling excited by the coming year. Yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, let's take a moment to just connect with our guides, our allies, ancestors, totem spirits, angels, all those forces, and thank them for their presence today, for channeling through this share, all the pieces that we shared here today. May you be supported in the year ahead. If we get to work together further, may I be of great support to you. May this work continue to grow, and may abundance bless you in the year ahead. Happy holidays, happy solstice, happy new year. May you enjoy your time with your friends and your family. And we offer this to the benefit of all beings. Namaste, aho. Thank you all. We'll see you in 2024 or right before the end of the year. Stay tuned, and we'll follow up with you soon. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.